Bonjour everyone, I am Annelise Caillès and welcome to Parlez-Vous CEO, where we teach the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Hello, bonjour, and bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-Vous CEO. I'm here today with Kirsten Karchmer. Am I saying that right, Kirsten?
Absolutely.
And I'm so pumped to have you here with us today and share your story with our audience. So for the people who are just hearing about Kirsten and discovering her, she's a health tech pioneer based in Texas, CEO of multiple companies, including Brazen and Conceivable, board certified reproductive acupuncturist and author of Seeing Red. She's helped over 10,000 women with fertility and menstrual health and has a compelling story of overcoming MS at 19. Kirsten, in your own words, I would love for you to share a little bit about your story with our audience today.
Yes, I'd love to. So, it kind of goes back to when I was very young. I was a competitive athlete. I spent a lot of time training in a gym until I really would train until I threw up almost every single day. And on the outside, I looked incredibly fit and healthy. But then around 18, 19, I started having a lot of neurological symptoms. Couldn't hold, my tennis racket. I was falling a lot. And ultimately, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I didn't want to take the medications only because they were very new at that time. There weren't a lot of longitudinal studies. And so I was really concerned about that. And a friend sort of forced me to go to acupuncture. And the acupuncturist explained it so clearly. So essentially, he was like, look, when you were born, your disease was very weak and your body was very strong. You were very robust. And he said, and then you trained and trained and trained and trained and trained and trained. And your body, while it looked healthier on the outside, this is a really important part of this conversation, what it looks like on the outside versus what's happening on the inside. If you looked at me like that's the healthiest person around, like I had perfect food, whatever, but I was training so hard. And so the acupuncturist said, our job is to make and then your disease had the opportunity to blossom and grow and cause more problems. And he's like, our job is to reverse that and get your constitution stronger than your disease. And if we can do that, potentially we can restore the functionality of your immune system and get your immune system to stop attacking your brain and spinal cord. Ultimately, I was just so inspired by the clarity. He says, look, your digestion doesn't work. Like you can't turn food into energy. And if you can't make energy, you can't nourish, you can't make blood, you can't make hormones, you can't nourish the nervous system, you can't support the immune system. And until we fix that, you're going to just continue to get worse. And then we started working together. And then I started getting better. I started having less episodes, less serious episodes, more time between episodes. And within about 18 months, no episodes. And I ended up not going to a neurologist again for about 10 years and had surgery on my jaw. And the doctor was like, they had done some scans in my head. And he's like, I thought you had MS. And I was like, well, I was diagnosed a long time ago. I haven't even seen a neurologist forever. I really am pretty symptom free. I have to take really good care of myself. And he said, that's weird. You don't have any scar tissue in your brain. And I was like, he's like, oh, we must have misdiagnosed you. And I was like, or I fixed it. And he, of course, was like, that's not possible. And I was like, okay, well, I'll have my story and you can have your story. The reality is that when we restore people's bodies to optimal functionality, many, especially chronic conditions will go away. It's not, those chronic conditions are almost always related to how we live. And when we figure out how we're living is affecting all of the systems, when we can build a strategy to repair that. So anyway, I ended up going to acupuncture school. I became one of the first board certified reproductive acupuncturists in North America. I got obsessed with the menstrual cycle, which I'm probably the only person that's ever said that. Because in Chinese medicine, every symptom tells us something diagnostic. If you tell me I have an eye twitch in my left eye on the lateral side of my eye at 3:00 in the afternoon, it lasts for 30 seconds, all of that information tells me something. And so the same thing for a woman's period, the number of days between the period, the quality of ovulation, the quality of cervical discharge, how much and severity of PMS, cramping, clotting, spotting, temperatures, all of these factors give us so much diagnostic information about how her overall health is functioning. And I really was so inspired by that. And so was the first reproductive acupuncturist. And then in 2015, almost done with my intro, in 2015, I read a study that said less than 3% of couples could afford fertility treatments. And when I read that study, I cried. I was actually quite ashamed because my clinics were sort of high touch concierge care. We sort of did everything for our patients. We had three clinics in 3 cities. We have an IVF center in our acupuncture center. And I thought, that means 97% of the people out there did not have access to anything. These people had this deep and burning desire for a family. And because of their economics, can't afford access to the tools and resources that can help them to be successful. And I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to that. And so I closed my clinics. Many years I went on unemployment when I was building this because I needed all day long to build the algorithm for the technology that we built. And finally, we're in market this year. So it's been a long journey, but something that I'm really excited and passionate about. I'm glad to be here and talk about.
That's amazing. I love hearing how you found your why and how that completely like made you pivot careers and just decide at that turning point to dedicate yourself to a greater cause. I think that's so beautiful. And so you've, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So you've built multiple health companies. What do you think is the biggest challenge in getting women to actually prioritize their menstrual health and when they focus on their career success?
Well, I think that I always think like there's a certain psychology to behavior change, right? And
Mhm.
so a woman who is very focused on her career is very focused on her career. This means she wants to win. She's like me. That's, type A. She wants to win. She wants to be a high performer. She wants to be able to do things people can't. She needs focus. She needs resources. And the reality is that actually by using the strategies that we use at Conceivable, that will actually do all of that. Because when we just did a survey last year, we had 16,000 women take this survey. And the first question, because it is so important, is what's your energy like on a 1 to 10 without caffeine or exercise for 2 whole days? Ideally, it should be 8 or better. If you want to perform, your non-caffeinated, non-exercise energy should be 8 or better. And 8% of 16,000 women had energy 8 or better. 30% had energy 3 or below.
Mhm.
Now, those girls are like, I can just outwork it.
Yeah.
But to be a high performer, to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a certain level of like self-awareness, right?
Mhm.
And if you are really passionate about whatever it is that you're doing in business, you just like I needed resources to regulate and modulate my immune system. We entrepreneurs, we need resources for clarity, for discernment, the things that women actually are so good at. To be great leaders, right? We need to be not emotionally impacted by our periods. 82% of women report life interrupting menstrual pain and PMS. My question is I talked about this in my book a lot. Like, what does the world look like when we liberate women from everything that their hormones are doing that's disruptive to them? What's possible in society, right? Because already look what women are doing. They're so badass, with 80% of them being compromised at least a week a month. And so when we take a step back and we start really prioritizing, again, Instagram, I think really, I mean, I'm on Instagram and I like Instagram, but I think that the messaging that we get is really trying to push women to be more like my gymnast self, ultra lean, really training, really overtraining for most women. Because if you're tired and you overtrain, you are really hurting yourself. People, if your energy is a 4 and you go to CrossFit, you have you're doing a lot of injury to yourself, because those energy 4 people, they go to CrossFit and they muscle through an hour or 90 minutes of CrossFit. There's nothing in the tank to get through the day, much less get through a CrossFit exercise workout. And so your body's like, well, this girl's going to do it anyways. Open up the adrenals. We're going to use adrenaline to get through this. Then those people whose energy is a 4, after the workout, they're like, oh, I feel so much better. It's not energy. They've just drained their adrenals. They've just overproduced cortisol, which makes it harder to produce progesterone. The more cortisol that you produce, the more belly fat you get. The more cortisol, when you have too much cortisol, you can't focus and concentrate. And so everything is like doing everything is never the right thing. It's most people could work on like 4 areas and completely transform their health. So long answer.
Wow. This is amazing. I'm blown away by everything that you're sharing. At some point, I thought you were singling me out when saying you go to CrossFit when you're outside. I'm like, does she know?
I know that almost all the people who are like you and I want to go to CrossFit.
That's exactly right.
For what it's worth, people will say, like, how do you feel about CrossFit? Again, I was a competitive athlete. I love to train hard, but the research is very clear. Women who exercise to exhaustion, that'd be CrossFit, Orange Theory, or on your own, like ultra marathoning, anything like that, 70% less likely to get pregnant. Less likely. So a lot of women will be like, if I want to get healthier, I'm going to train more, I'm going to eat less, I'm going to be more restrictive, I'm not going to have any fun because there's no time to do that if you're doing all those things. And that will not help you to be more successful as an entrepreneur.
So what will help you be more successful as an entrepreneur if the classic route is not the route?
So before we talk about like the physical part, I think because we're talking about entrepreneurship here, I want to start with a more important part. So I don't know if your listeners have ever read any Dan Sullivan. He's the founder of Strategic Coach, which is a big entrepreneur coaching program. And he's like 75 years old. And he wrote a book, 10X is better than 2X, or some version of that. And everyone, I really recommend, just listen to it, because in the audio, they actually interview Dan and you get to just hear, his conversations. He's an incredibly smart entrepreneur, incredibly smart, and really easy to listen to. And basically this book is about like having a goal to double something. I want double the revenue, double the customers, double the impact, whatever, is the most dangerous goal that you can have, and especially for women. So people are like, and he's like, no, you want to have a 10X goal. So instead of like, if we want to 10X our revenue, you think, well, that's not possible, a 10X our revenue in 1 year or something. It's like big goals, short periods of time. And he said, the only reason is that, and this is what women do a lot, right? Because we're just like, we'll pick up the slack. We'll pick up anything we have to do. And this is, I think, what gets us into trouble. In order to 2X your goal, you can just work harder. You work twice as hard, you'll get twice the outcome most of the time. But to 10X, you have to do something completely different. You have to step out of what you think is possible, and you have to look at a lot of things that are impossible and figure out how to make one of those possible. And this is exactly what happened for me. I was using Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan at the time when I was still a clinician. I read that study and I was just like, I want to 10X my impact on women's health, but I don't want more acupuncturists. I don't want more commercial real estate. That was really stressful for me. I don't want to be managing enough people to see 10 million, I don't want to train and manage that many acupuncturists. So I knew that I didn't want to scale that way, but I had no other idea how, because I thought that acupuncture was the most important piece of it. And then, I don't know, as Dan kept talking to me and he's like, so what, if you're not going to do that, what are any just out of the part? And I was like, well, I mean, technology, but how do you do that? And he's like, well, why don't you do a test to see what kind of impact you could get without acupuncture? Why don't you just validate it? Just build a small version of it, test it with, a small amount of people. And then that's what we did. And again, like I'm a little bit famous, like in the reproductive acupuncture world, just because I'm kind of like one of the grandmothers, right? So I think I'm pretty good. I've trained tens of thousands of reproductive acupuncturists. So we did a pilot. We compared 105 women coming to me for 4 months and 105 women coming just using the app for 4 months, no human interaction. And this was before all the AI wasn't nearly as theoretically impactful or personalized. And then the data scientists came back and they're like, so we got the results back from the study. And I said, oh, good. I said, it didn't work, did it? And he goes, oh, it worked. And I said, how close did it get to me? Because I told them, this is my ego. I told them, I said, well, if 50% is good as me, we should still build it, because that's still going to be impactful, like seriously impactful. And so I was like, did it get, how close did it get to me? And he's like, well, actually you got close to it. And I said, what do you mean? And it's like, she beat you by 6%. And I was like, no way. The app beat me with no acupuncture? And at first I was really upset. I was like embarrassed. I was like, oh, I actually think I'm really good. I must suck because this like app beat me. None of my coaching, all the things I thought were important actually were less important. And what I found was that it isn't that acupuncture is not important, that acupuncture can play a role. It can be really valuable, but it's expensive. It's time consuming. For some people, it's very stressful who like have aversion or concerns about needles. But more importantly, like what I found was that when women go to get an acupuncture treatment, they lay on the table and they say, I got acupuncture. And then you might say, okay, you don't have very much menstrual blood. We need to build your lining. Let's eat more iron rich foods. Okay. But do they do it? Do they not do it? Or do they cook? Is the protein that they're eating hamburgers from McDonald's? And if I say I want you to get more sleep, they're like, okay, I'll try. It's not in the app. We interview them and we make a detailed strategy for every single diet, lifestyle, behavioral health thing, and then we ask them to track it so that we're basically the AI can then become her accountability partner. So she can use an analyze button at any time to just analyze all the data in the app. And when she does that, the app goes in, and instead of saying like, usually like on a regular track, it'd say you got 10,000 steps. That's your analysis, right? Or you got 1,000 steps, take more steps. That's the level of like personalization. In our structure, basically we're building an operating system instead of just an app. And so what that means is that the app can then figure out what's wrong, teach her about it, tell her exactly what to do, ask her to track it. And then when she hits the analyze button, she'll say, okay, well, so it looks like your energy is still a 5 out of 10. And let's look at your sleep. Oh, I see you're still only getting 6 hours of sleep. Tell me what's going on with sleep, because if we're going to improve your energy, we got to get more sleep. Can you? And then instead of saying you just need to get more sleep, the AI starts problem solving.
Mhm.
So it's like, so tell me what's going on. Are you not able to fall asleep, stay asleep? You don't wake up rested. Oh, I can't fall asleep. Then she starts asking questions. Well, why am I trying to figure out why is that? So tell me about your caffeine intake. Oh, I have like 4 cups of coffee. What time do you have the coffee? Oh, I have 2 in the morning, at 2 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe the whole fix to this person's energy problem is removing those 2 coffees in the afternoon. Then she sleeps more and then it's fixed. I didn't need sleep supplements. I didn't need sleep hygiene. And so that is the level of, and I just went off on a tangent and I can't remember what your question was.
No, that's awesome. You're not intention. It's perfectly, you're answering perfectly. I love what you're building. And it's also so different than traditional or established medical thinking. I love that. So I love hearing about all of it. And Kirsten, so how do you build credibility and trust when you're challenging what traditional doctors have told women for decades?
Yes. Data. Data. And the good news is we have a lot of data. Our users are giving us a lot of data, right? Early on, we'll have more. And then importantly is just like we're like, I wrote 9 white papers this month.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be publishing papers every month
Wow,
to
that's
continue to
amazing.
show, like one of the papers is basically the relationship between fatigue and infertility. Like no one has documented that. If you can't make or conserve or restore energy, you don't have resources to make marrow, to make blood, to make a lining, to make hormones, to regulate them, to fuel the mitochondrial activity inside the egg. And so these are the ways that you're in trust. And then also just through user feedback from people saying, I used it for this long, and
Mhm.
like user generated content.
And what do you think has been your biggest surprise about scaling from one-on-one patient to serving thousands through apps and products?
I think that the biggest surprise was that, to me, like, our offering is a total no-brainer. That's what I tried to design it. Like a complete, like so much value that you're like, only an idiot would say no to this. Like I would have to be a complete idiot. So you get a month free. It's only $15 a month. Apple takes 5 of that. So we use the rest to pay for the AI. Then supplements do play a role, and almost all women who are trying to improve their health take supplements, but most of them are taking really low quality supplements. But unfortunately, high quality supplements are very expensive. And so we had a full line that I developed of the individual, like there are no supplements for fertility, but there are certain supplements that can be very valuable for the subclinical factors that are impacting fertility and miscarriage. And that's what we had. But because they were ultra high quality, like one bottle of one thing was like $70, and people were like, it's too expensive. And I wanted them to take, several different things. Well, this is where the surprise comes in. So recently we got a new manufacturer, and we're able to, the app tells you like take these whatever supplements it recommends based on what you've shared with it and what it analyzes. And so it says that, and you can just click a button that says order supplements. Then basically curates individual personalized packs. So one pack for every single day of the month. For about 50 to 70% less than you would pay on Amazon for ultra high premium quality stuff. So instead of costing $400, we were able to get it down to like $50 or $60.
Wow.
The surprise is that when I launched it, no one was checking out. I was like, this is a no-brainer. Personalized, pre-packaged, no plastic, ultra high quality, and really, really affordable. And people were like, it seems like a scam. It's too cheap.
Too good to be true. Yeah.
And so, the people who know me, who are my followers, and have like 500,000 followers on social media, they know, because I've been talking about this struggle. Like, I'm really trying to figure this out for you guys. But a new person who comes just from whatever, they're like, this seems too cheap, And so we ended up raising the prices, which I hate to do because, I'm committed to making everything that I'd rather have a little bit of margin on 1 million users than a huge margin on 10 users. And I know that, theoretically, I already had the high ticket item, and now I want to build the first operating system for women's health. So I want to make sure that every person on the planet can afford it if they want it, or that their insurance company pays for it ultimately.
So, as you saw that you didn't get the results that you wanted for that launch, and you realized there's a credibility problem here when priced that way, people are a bit hesitant. What do you think about the importance of building authority and credibility as a founder to represent your brand, to actually establish these connections with people who haven't necessarily heard of you? So they just see maybe an ad popping up in their feed, but they've never heard of you. Do you believe in the importance of founder representation and you being the face of your brand?
I do. And I mean, I think a lot of it depends on what kind of company you want to build. Like if you have a widget, if you have like an AI tool that writes blogs, who cares? We don't need to know who you are. Like that's not important. Anything related to health, fitness requires exponentially higher levels of trust, which is why we're publishing so many studies. We're publishing the studies that basically debunk what doctors are telling women currently, right? Like one of the biggest myths is like, the doctors tell women like, here, let's give you birth control to regulate your period. I'm like, doesn't really work that way. Like birth control suppresses ovulation, and really your period is just a reflection of what happens after ovulation. So I think that that's important. And I think depending on, I think that companies can be fine without founder representation, but it really just depends on the vertical that they're in and unfortunately, how like charismatic and compelling the founder is, because, there are some very smart people who like are not very charismatic, but they can build an incredible product, and their on screen time is actually not going to add value, right? Because there's, I just happen to be good on camera, and I actually, like the first version of Conceivable failed. So we did launch a version of this company in 2016, and we had raised a lot of money, and we could not earn the trust of the consumer. And based on that, like I was part of an accelerator, and my mentors and directors were like, we think because this is going to be a unicorn, we think we should scrub you out of it. So the exact opposite about what you're asking, because it's really hard to sell a company for $1 billion if the founder has to go, and if the founder's presence is a critical piece. So they're like, let's scrub you out of it. Well, you'll still be the founder. And then they put me in lab coats with stethoscopes. And I was like, today we're going to be talking about PCOS and blah, blah, blah. And nobody related to that. They're like, this just looks like my dick doctor who doesn't do anything. It just, and then the reason why I came back to it, in addition to what we talked about earlier, was that Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a big marketing guy in New York, I don't know if you know him, he's a billionaire marketer from the Ukraine, and he's an LP in the fund that invested in our company. And so my investor was like, I arranged for you to go spend a day with Gary. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool with Gary V. And he's real sassy, and he's like, you need to fucking be on TikTok like all day. And at that time I was 50, and I was like, what am I going to dance? I'd never even been on TikTok. I was like, what do I dance about over? He's like, I was like, what am I going to even do? And he's like, fuck you. He's real sassy. And he's like, pull up your panties, quit being such a baby, pick up your phone and start teaching. He goes, I don't even care about women's health, and I'm so interested in what you're saying. He goes, you need to be on TikTok all day. And so start making, he's like, 3 videos a day for 3 months. It was during the pandemic, and I had about 200,000 followers in 3 months.
Amazing.
And then that was the pivotal moment when I was like, I know why the first version of this failed. And so that's when I set out to build a digital twin of myself. I was like, it's not like, I add so much value. And because now with AI, I can circumvent that problem. There's so much, like there's 5,000 TikToks of me, right? There's so much video content that with AI, you can repurpose me in perpetuity. And one thing that they say about Chinese medicine, from Chinese medicine, they say the good doctor treats the patient, the great doctor treats society. I mean, the great doctor can treat society, but the master will make herself obsolete. And that's my goal. I'm obsolete as an acupuncturist now. Now I'm setting myself, like, even as the founder of this company, as the figurehead, I'm making myself obsolete by duplicating myself. And if as an entrepreneur, you can adopt this yourself, like, how do I make myself obsolete? How do I find people who are smarter than me, who are more skilled? And what is the secret sauce? What is my secret sauce? Dan Sullivan calls it your unique ability. It's not the thing that you're best at. I'm a great acupuncturist, but I don't care about doing acupuncture. It's really boring to me. But I'm really great problem solver, and I'm a great diagnostician, and I'm a great connector. And that I do better than anybody else. And that's what I do inside my company. So you look for everybody else to fill in the gaps and try not to do anything that you're not good at. In the beginning, you have to, right? You have to slub through, and it looks ugly and it's bad, but as quickly as possible, start replacing yourself.
Wow, this is such great insights for anybody running a business or thinking about starting a business. This is really invaluable. And so, Kirsten, where do you find, I mean, TikTok, but otherwise, how and where do you find customers that are most receptive to learning about menstrual health? Is it through social, healthcare providers, word of mouth? What has been your most potent channel?
Currently, social medias, we've been just starting to test. Like, the app has been out for about 6 months, but it's been in like an alpha stage, and we just got it to basically a good MVP. There's still some bugs, and it has a lot of room to grow. So we haven't been promoting it to doctors or insurance companies or any other multipliers that will make sense for us. We want to make sure that when we show it to them, that it's extremely impressive. And we still need about 6 more months to get to that place where, like, they go through the experience and they're like, my head just got blown off. That just blew me away. And so most of it comes from social media, and literally, I mean, TikTok's going to go, what's the date today? TikTok, is going away tomorrow. A new app is being launched. So all the entrepreneurs who are here, maybe even you can just send this out as a social media post, because this probably won't air tomorrow. But tomorrow, a new app is being launched called M, and it's the replacement TikTok. But that is a huge, huge opportunity to any founder who can make a video, because it's the wild, wild west. There's no competition. And I would get on there. I would spend the whole day today and make like 100 short videos. And tomorrow I would go and start publishing like 10 a day. Go ahead and like stake your claim in a brand new social media app. And then I think in a month or two, the regular TikTok will go away, and all you'll be left with is M. M is for Meta. It kind of sucks. And it will not have any access outside of the US, which I really hate that, because that's sort of like feels like North Korea to me, like right, limiting our access to, because I think you don't see this so much on Instagram, but you can get a lot of feedback about global events on TikTok. Of course, there's misinformation, but I'll often see a different point of view that I wouldn't see anywhere else on TikTok, and we're going to lose all that. So,
And so going back to what you're saying, because you make it sound like it's super easy. You like just, take your phone, just record videos. Do you actually do that? You just take your phone like that and you just record like 3 videos a day, and no fancy mic, no, just with your iPhone. That's how you go about it.
I literally will do it in bed. TikTok gives you such a nice filter. You can look so ugly. You can hold up first the camera like, whoa, that is not my best self. And they have some ridiculous filters, but they have some very soft filters. Just gives you a little bit of lipstick, a little bit of eyeliner, a little bit of just a tiny, because I'm not a big makeup person, you can see, even for being on camera. And it'll like just cleans everything up. And just, I mean, the biggest thing that you want to work on is a good hook, which means just start the video with something really compelling. You want to just start the video with something compelling. And, now is a good time to practice on the real TikTok, because who cares? It's going to go away anyway. So what TikTok lets you do, because unlike like on Instagram, if I make a video, most of it only gets shown to my followers. I have like 30,000 followers on Instagram, not that many. And but on TikTok, you post a video, it shows it to 10 people, and it sees how long do they watch and do they interact. And if they meet a threshold, it shows it to 100, and then 1,000, and then 10,000, and then 100,000, and then 1,000,000, and then 10 million, and then 50 million. And so, but you got to get that first question. It doesn't even have to be like, it shouldn't be like, this is a video about how to get pregnant. Okay, swipe. That's too boring, right? Here's one thing you need to know if you're trying to get pregnant, and you have to like, just bring it a little bit. But it doesn't matter how ugly it is. It does better on TikTok if it's less produced, I find. Shorter. Unless you're really good and you can really, I'm a long talker, you can see, but even on TikTok, I try to keep them a minute or two, because basically if they don't get to the end of the video, TikTok penalizes you. So it's basically how long you can keep them engaged. But just start by making videos. And then what happens is like, say we're testing a messaging thing. Right now we have the app as like the most powerful fertility coach on the planet. But because the app has many different people, AI people who are working, you have a nutritionist, a therapist, you have an acupuncturist, somebody who analyzes your tongue. We have all these basically team members. So I'm testing messaging for, instead of like the most powerful fertility coach, to your virtual care team, your virtual fertility care team, your therapist, your nutritionist, your data scientist, and giving them personalities, right? So before I have to spend any money, I just go on TikTok and I just put it up, and like in the middle of the conversation when 50, 100, 1,000 people are in there, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about this. How do you guys relate with this message? And then I can get immediate user feedback. And that has been invaluable. And the other thing is, if you spend an hour talking to your audience every day, you will know what the pain points, because they ask the same questions over and over, and then start building to solve those problems. You won't have any questions about it. Like I built the therapy app inside of the Conceivable app, because one of the most popular questions that happen every single day is, how do you cope with the stress, anxiety, and grief on this journey? I'm dying. And so then I would ask, like, what are you currently doing? Right? Product research. But they don't know. I mean, I'm doing it because I do want to know, but also in my head, I'm like, okay, what's not meeting their needs, and what can I build to actually fulfill those needs in a way that'll be materially impactful?
Wow, that's really interesting. And what I'm taking from this, and this is what I always encourage people that I come across with, and women starting businesses, building businesses, there's this fear of visibility and also wanting to be perfect on camera and when they go online. But you're the perfect example with a record showing that no, you just show up, you're consistent, you answer questions that people are really interested in finding out about consistently, and that will grow your audience.
So, okay, so say somebody's like, okay, I think I want to try this. Just try it for 1 month, right? Nothing can go wrong. You will learn. You will learn a lot, I promise you. And an easy way, if you're like, because people are like, I don't know what to create. There's a website, Answer the Public. If you don't know about that, it's accessible globally. And it basically shows you can go in and type a keyword that's relevant to what you want, is an important keyword, and try to niche, like say you're like an entrepreneur coach. You want to be niched down to like, okay, I'm women with entrepreneurship. It makes it a lot faster to grow because then your content is more targeted, right? And people like, oh, I know this is somebody I should follow. For me, it's actually too broad, fertility, because under fertility is like miscarriage, PCOS. But what I would do is go to Answer the Public and type in, the keyword, the short or long keyword. And then it's going to give you like this round thing. And on the round thing, it'll be like 100 of the most popular questions in the last 24 hours asked on Google. And also it has TikTok and Instagram, but I just use Google, and then it ranks it, like it'll show you dark orange if it's a really high and light orange if it's like lower instance. And so what I do when I don't know what to make is I just go in, I'll type in a keyword, I'll pull out the top 2 orange questions, and then I'll build a whole list. And I will sit in front of my desk. I'll set up all the things. I'll set up the teleprompter, and I will literally just, like, I don't need scripts, but they could just like take those questions. So say they come up with 100 questions. That's what I would shoot for. 100 questions, and then ask GPT to write the scripts for you and tell GPT with a really compelling hook, 30 seconds, super compelling hook. And then just put your teleprompter on. You can use Captions. That's an app that is very easy, very user-friendly. And you can just sit there and it'll just, for 1 or 2 hours, you can make 100 videos.
Amazing. I love your process. That's so efficient. I love that.
That's my specialty. Because I have to manage my energy, right? So if we go back to your first question, right, what can women start to do? What we have to do is we have to figure out what's not important. We do way too much. And so one thing is like literally just making a list of all the things you do all day long, every little work thing that you do, and seeing, like, first of all, identifying the things that you're not very good at, because those things take a lot longer, like the financial stuff. I'm horrible at finance. Horrible. I'm horrible at spreadsheets. And I can do it. I can do every piece of it, and I can get a B+ in it. But my operator, my COO, is like a whiz at it. And what would take me 3 hours will take him 15 minutes. And we somehow think that if we're doing a lot, that gives us, we look better, people respect us more if we're grinding. Just makes your life suck. And it makes you inefficient. And so what are the things that you are better than everybody else at and that you love doing, and delegate everything else? And then give yourself some room. Like, you need room in the day to think. Like, even when I drive, I like to listen to books on tape, but I like to listen to business books. And that's not resting. That's still grinding. You know what I mean? It's like, don't even listen to music. Go take a walk with nothing but your dog, or just you, or sit by the pool or whatever. Like, that is where ideas come.
I sometimes feel, I'm like, does she know? Does she know me?
I do.
Oh, that's so funny. And so, Kirsten, for women who want to start companies around uncomfortable topics, what would be your advice for getting market traction, for raising funds when you're entering that space?
So my other company is called Brazen. Brazen is a period company, and Brazen means to overcome something shameful with swagger. And so my advice, if you're doing a company around something that's uncomfortable, and unfortunately, anything that relates to a bodily function of a female is uncomfortable, evidently, for society. And even I was on a podcast last week with a surgeon, and we had slipped from female fertility into male fertility. We started talking about sperm, and the surgeon was like, whoa, 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 I didn't know we were going to like talk about all this intimate stuff, right? I was like, but that's not a criticism of the doctor. It's a reflection of how uncomfortable society is. Yeah. For me, I just lean in. I'd push harder. I would look at Thinx as your model, the period panties company, the first period underwear company, because if you think, like, if they would have pitched me, I would have been like, that's a great idea, but hell no, no one is going to buy that. No one is going to buy underwear that you have to freely bleed into, and then you have to wash in your washing machine. But the founder was really smart. She pushed hard on it. They put billboards up in New York. Do you remember this? Do you know what happened? Yeah. They put like pictures of grapefruits that kind of look like vaginas, and then the transit says, no, that's inappropriate, and they're like, it's a grapefruit, and they ended up getting so much free press from it and so much attention. So you want to build a vibrator, you want to do anything that's related to sexual health or women's health or even about periods, then I would say play hard. Nadia Okamoto, she started, what's her company called? If you look her up on social media, she has about 5 million followers. She got on there, and she's a gorgeous Asian young woman, and she would get on there and like be in her underwear with a tampon string hanging out. And talk, just like really trying to talk about like all the really hard stuff. I don't have periods anymore, so for me to do that kind of stuff would have been super weird, because like, that lady doesn't even have a period anymore, like what's she doing? But because of her age, she was able, and she's super pretty and has a nice body, and she just didn't hold back, and it blew the company up. She built a good product. Of course, if you build a product that you believe in, it makes it a lot easier. If you build something that you're passionate about, it makes it a lot easier to not be afraid. Like, my company failed. I almost went bankrupt. I was really in a terrible financial situation trying to rebuild this company. But I was like, this is the most important thing I can do in my whole life. If I can change this, if I can build this and bring it to Martin, I will change the life of almost every woman on this planet. And that is worth doing. And so it takes all the fear away. You're like, you can punch me in the face 1,000 times and I'm going to get up every time until I'm dead. And, if you identify that way, you don't, you have to take a lot of risks. The bigger the risks you take, the better chance you have of breaking something open real. And if you play safe, you're going to get something small and maybe a little bit of impact.
Wow, that's so inspiring and profound, and I love your mission. So, Kirsten, and this is my last question. What would you tell your 20-year-old self? What piece of advice or golden nugget of wisdom would you share with yourself?
That's a good question. That's a really good, because there's a lot that I would tell my 20-year-old self. So trying to boil it down, and you think people have asked me that before. I think it would be, like, in my mind when I was 20, I thought I played big. I thought I was taking a lot of risk and playing really big. I did whatever I wanted. I changed careers a lot, but I still was playing really safe because I was afraid what people would think. I was afraid to embarrass myself. I was afraid that my parents wouldn't be proud of me, and my parents aren't alive anymore. And I already almost went bankrupt once already, and about to go raise $10 million in a couple of months. And so if you can let go of those things, it makes playing a really big game a lot easier. And just not caring, like really trying not to care about what anybody else thinks. And as a younger woman, that is really hard. Like, as a 50-year-old woman, that is so easy now, because I don't know, you go through menopause and you're like, whatever, who cares? I know that's not easy, but if you can just, every time you catch yourself worrying about what somebody's doing or thinking about you or your company or whatever, and you can just be like, that's a fucking shackle. That is a shackle. And you ask yourself, like, am I a girl who gets shackled? Am I here to be chained up, or am I here to go break things? And
Yes.
the more that you can, right? The more that you can label it that, like, no one is shackling me. No one is going to keep me from doing whatever it is that I want to do. I don't even care what it is, even if that's nothing, right? Do your best, whatever it is that you want to do. And even if you only want to have a really small company, then just do it, but do it in a way exactly the way you want to do it.
Oh, I love this. Thank you so much, Kirsten. This was such a good, inspiring, and beautiful conversation today. I'm so happy you went on the show.
Well, it's really been fun, and I feel like you and I could just like talk the whole day.
Absolutely. Kirsten, where can people find you? Are you launching anytime soon? Tell us a little bit about what's coming up for you.
So we are in market. You can go to the App Store and download the app. It's Kai by Conceivable. Kai is Kirsten plus AI, Kirsten AI. And but if because like I'm primarily on TikTok, so you can follow me on TikTok, Your Fertility Expert, or you can just head over to our website, and if you message us through the website, it will get to me. So that's for sure, and that's not going anywhere. And what we're working on now is a whole bunch of things for the next version of the app. Basically, this virtual care team, we're building a tool called Face Scan. So you can hold your phone up and it'll be like, root, 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 take your temperature, blood pressure, body composition, and stress metrics. So that in real time, then that information gets fed to the app. And inside of the app, it takes that information and then adds it to your care plan. So whatever it's, this person's blood pressure is a little bit high, we need to recommend a little bit more stress tools, or this person's, whatever, all the things. So that's the best way to do it. And then what we're going to finish is the miscarriage and pregnancy app and the postpartum recovery app, so that we have this seamless, like extending the lifetime customer value from an entrepreneur point of view, but also ultimately, I want to build a platform, an operating system that goes from before girls get their first period all the way through postmenopause. So if you're a person who's like, I don't necessarily want to get pregnant, you can still use the app. It's free for the first month. If you're interested in all in women's health, you should go and download it and just work it as if you were trying to get pregnant. You're not going to necessarily get pregnant, but if you think about optimal fertility is optimal health. Ultimately, we'll have an app for you guys who are not trying to get pregnant in the next year or so. But for now, if you want to improve your period, if you want to get rid of your period pain, regulate your cycle, work on your PCOS, you can use the app for that, and try the supplements, because it's a killer good deal.
That's amazing. And I'm so excited about this new app, Kirsten, and about everything that you're building. You're really inspiring. Thank you again for coming today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. And thanks again for being here on Parlez-Vous CEO. And that wraps up today's episode. I am Annelise Caillez, and I can't wait to join you again next week.
Thanks for listening to Parlez-Vous CEO today. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It helps us keep going. And connect with us on Instagram at Parlez-Vous CEO. I am Annelise Caillez, and I know some days are harder than others. On those tough days, think back to why you started. What you're doing today matters, even when you can't see the results yet. Ideas are great, but it's what you do with them that counts. Find everything we talked about today at parlezvousceo.com. See you next week, and you've got this.